I've had many lives, good ones, bad ones, and tons of muck in between. I had my reckless Maryland youth, my entrepreneurial years, my hotshot screenwriter days, and this one period in my 20s I'll never forget, when I worked security for a D.C. gentlemen's club called The Last Light. I remember a whole lot about that place. The kids who always tried to give me fake IDs, the time a timid older woman asked me about lap dance prices, or the city's mayor's occasional visits. Yeah, he was a bit of a crook. I'd pat him down and he'd go sit at a table with some mobsters, smoke, drink, indulge in vices. That kind of place isn't my cup of tea these days. I'm in my quiet Rodney era, but it came back into my life anyway. I was in D.C. last winter, a detour weekend after a trip home to Annapolis. Now, let me be frank, I wasn't in a good place. I was working a lot at the time and had a lot of anxiety because of that. I worried that the hours I spent writing were taking away from time with loved ones, and I wondered if I was living at all, or if life would just be a series of jobs till death came for me. That was my mindset in D.C. Anyway, one night, after I met some friends for dinner, I walked back to my car, and my route took me past the last light. I stopped to look at it. I hadn't thought about the club in years. Seemed like no one else had either. Its windows were boarded up, graffiti on its walls. A beer can rolled around the wet, cold parking lot, moved by a frigid breeze, right into a pair of boots. They belonged to a man wearing a black trench coat. He had his hood up, arms crossed, like he was trying to keep himself warm. He gave me pause, because from under that hood, he was staring at me in a way that made me feel like he knew me, which turned out to be right. He called out, "Didn't you used to work here?" I reasoned he must have been a co-worker of mine back in the day. But that didn't sit right. It was a long time ago, but I'm good with faces, and I didn't recognize this guy. Even so, I nodded and asked if we had worked together. The man didn't answer my question. Instead, he replied that I had left this place just in time. The last light went to hell soon after. Then, he smiled, a sinister, charming kind of smirk, and added, "Most spots do, when the bodies start to drop." You're listening to Run, Fool! I'm Rodney Barnes, and this is episode 65, Dance of Death. The hooded stranger uttered a name with a low, syrupy voice. Lana. He wanted to tell me about a woman named Lana. His voice gave me the chills, made me want to run in the other direction, but I was also feeling a fair amount of anticipation, the kind I get when I'm about to hear a good story that will change me, for better or worse. So, there was no way I wasn't going to hear what this guy had to say. He told me that Lana used to dance at the last light. She was only in her late 20s, but she lived 1,000 lives before she got to that decade. Not all of them were great, including the one she was currently in. On a Friday night one winter, Lana was on stage, whipping around the pole, moving and grooving to a loud, tinny soundtrack. She looked up as she danced at the blinding neon lights. That way, she wouldn't lock eyes with any patrons in the audience, because if she did, they might see how much she hated them, hated this job. So she looked up till her song finished. Then she collected the bills that led to the stage and ran to the dressing room, where she sat in front of a mirror and silently berated herself. I don't mean to demean the profession. There are a lot of exotic dancers who love their jobs and are excellent at what they do. But for Lana, well, dancing at the last light symbolized everything that had gone wrong in her life. I'll try to move through this fast, because the details aren't that important. Years ago, Lana was a ballerina, went to Juilliard, was about to graduate and join some fancy company, but an ankle injury ruined her career and gave her a nasty addiction to painkillers. After that, she was in a fog, making one bad choice after another. To feed her addiction, she'd been sliding into despair for almost 10 years. The one good thing to come out of that decade was her daughter, Millie. But Millie lived with Lana's mother now. Lana didn't see her much. That was intentional, on everyone's part. All that is why Lana stared at herself in the mirror after every set and wondered if she was even human, if she had a life, or if this was it. An endless rotation of drugs, a job she despised, then 5 minutes of self-loathing and pity in front of a mirror. After those 5 were up, she popped a pill, swallowed it dry, then reapplied her lipstick and stood, ready to go outside and mingle with the customers. Before she went, she stared at her reflection once more. Not alive, not dead. Somewhere in between. Lana headed into the loud, chaotic pulse of the main room. She wove between patrons and offered a dazed smile here, a phony wink there. She moved robotically, going through the motions. But then something happened that pulled her out of the normal routine. A hand grabbed her arm. It was ice cold. She found herself looking into the eyes of a very pale man. His skin almost glowed under the neon hue of the club. Even so, he was handsome. Dark eyebrows over even darker eyes. A kind of smile that felt like... this was a guy who noticed things. You know? He looked at Lana, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like he actually saw her. Warts and all. Before she could say a thing, the man spoke. His voice was kind, dripping with empathy, as he asked, "Are you ready for me to take you?" It was a weird thing to say, and it bothered the hell out of Lana. She wrenched her arm back, heart pounding. She realized she was scared. Something about his expression and that question gave her an immense sense of dread. But before she could do anything about it, he was gone. I mean, gone. Nowhere in sight, not in the crowd, not by the door. The guy had vanished into thin air, which was odd, but Lana was so relieved. And for once, when a customer waved for her attention, she felt grateful. Because focusing on her crappy job was better than thinking about that man and his gentle, unsettling question. She worked for another few hours until her shift ended. After that, she went outside, bundled up in her winter coat and gloves. Her breath fogged up the frosty air as she watched the road, waiting for a dealer's red sedan to arrive and pick her up. The pills she took earlier had worn off. She was dazed and starting to get nauseous by the time Jerry pulled up. She hopped into the passenger seat. A few of Jerry's buddies were in the back, smoking a pipe of something. Lana didn't care. She was too focused on the bag of pills Jerry handed her. She took one, then leaned back in her seat. Jerry took off through the wintry streets of D.C., heading towards their neighborhood on the city's outskirts. He cranked the music up. The pulsing drone vibrated Lana's ears. Her eyelids got heavy as she zoned out, thinking about nothing but the empty, dark winter road ahead of them. Except suddenly, it wasn't empty. A man stood in the center of the asphalt. Everything that happened next went down in a split second. Jerry swerved. The 2 passengers in the back seat screamed. Lana thought she screamed too, but she wasn't sure. Because seconds before the car slammed into a tree, all she could think about was that she knew exactly who that man was. It was the customer from the club, the eerie, handsome one, and seeing his face in the darkness, illuminated by their incoming headlights, made an imprint in her memory, an etching that she knew would last forever. That was as far as she got. Because then, her world went black with a roaring crunch of metal and broken glass. Have you ever been to a dentist who wants to chat with you while they're cleaning your teeth? Or a therapist who only has openings in the middle of your workday? Or a primary care doctor with a literal 6-month wait to get in for a visit? Well, I'm here to tell you that you don't have to settle anymore when it comes to finding the right doctor. With ZocDoc, you've got options. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality, in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 100,000 doctors across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, primary care to urgent care, and more. If I needed this product, it's what I'd use. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/run to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/run. ZocDoc.com/run.
Hit pause on whatever you're listening to and hit play on your next adventure. Stay 3 nights this summer at Best Western and get $50 off a future stay. Life's the trip. Make the most of it at Best Western. Visit bestwestern.com for complete terms and conditions.
The car had plunged off the snowy road, right into a tree, got wrapped around his trunk like it was made of tinfoil. This was a bad crash, a fatal crash. Jerry died. So did the two in the back. Lana, well, she was the only survivor. And here's what's strange. She didn't have a scratch on her. A bit of whiplash, that was it. Sitting in the one seat that was immune to the gore. So yeah, she was spared. And she couldn't help but think, why? I've noticed that's one of the ways people tend to go when they survive something like that. It's guilt, really. You think, why me? And wonder if you really deserve the lottery ticket. But others see it as a second chance to turn their lives around, really earn their place in the world, instead of wasting it. Lana might have asked a question or two about her survival, but she ended up being the latter. This was her wake-up call that life was fleeting, and if she was going to be on this earth, she might as well find a way to enjoy it. So, she changed. She started taking classes at a community college, real estate or something. Worked extra shifts, put money away, got off the pills, saw her kid again. She even thought about dusting off her ballet shoes, but she wasn't quite ready for that. It still hurt. The point was, that accident was the best thing that ever happened to her. And about 6 months later, she walked into the last light in the heat of summer, ready to start her final shift. After tonight, she was starting a new gig, a real estate job, and was moving into a place with Millie. Life was good. So there she was, at the last light, slated to be on stage in an hour. Until then, she worked the room. This time, she didn't have to put any phony charm on. She was glowing, happily chatting with customers, actually listening to what they said. Before she knew it, she felt her boss tap her shoulder. It was time for her to go on stage. Her life at the last light was almost over, and her new life with Millie was about to start. But when she turned, it wasn't her boss. It was someone else, a guy wearing a hoodie that concealed his face. She leaned forward, trying to get a look at him. The intermittent club lights weren't bright enough, though. He remained in shadow, but his voice felt familiar when he asked, "Can we go somewhere private?" He was asking for a private room. Lana hesitated. She couldn't place the voice, but it gave her a bad feeling. Made her hand shake. Then, he pulled out a wad of cash, showed it to her. Now, Lana was in a better place financially, but she could still use the money. So she nodded, and they meandered through the crowd past the vapid stage lights and the layering patrons. They moved into the back hallway where the private rooms were. It was pretty dark, but there was some blue track lighting that lined the sides of the corridor. Lana could sense the hooded man behind her. His gaze pressed at the back of her neck, making each and every hair stand up. She tried to exhale her worry, reasoning that she just had to get through this private. Then her final dance on stage. And then she'd finally step out of the last light, into her next life. She opened room 3, led the man inside, then closed the door behind them. She turned, just as the stranger removed his hood. Now, I'm sure a lot of you already guessed who was under that hood, but Lana didn't. So when she saw who it was, she almost screamed, but couldn't. Visceral shock made her lungs close up, so all that came out was a croak. Yeah, it was the handsome stranger, the one with the dark eyes and the kind but sinister smile, the one she saw at the last light 6 months ago, and then again on the road, right before Jerry and the others died a fiery death. She could feel the color drain from her face. Her knees went all wobbly, and she wondered if she was in a nightmare. 'Cause she saw that face every night when she closed her eyes. Now, here he was, in the flesh, reaching out a hand and telling her, it's time to go. A jolt of fear rushed through Lana and she lunged for the door. She didn't really know what was going on, but every instinct she had was telling her to run. She didn't get a chance, though, because the handsome stranger suddenly appeared in front of her, like he'd been there the whole time. Only he wasn't so handsome anymore. His skin was disintegrating, falling off his cheekbones like a decomposing corpse. Maggots feasted on his bones, crawling through his eye sockets. Despite all that, he smiled again, and it was somehow still charming. Lana backed away. She tripped, falling onto the floor with a thud. She saw the figure loom over her and reached up a desperate hand to block herself from whatever he was about to do. Only, it wasn't her hand. It was all sinew and bone, as if she was a walking corpse herself. She screamed at the sight of it, looked at the stranger, who was now back to normal. No more rot. It was like it had never been there at all. When she glanced at her hand, it too was flesh and blood again. That didn't make her less afraid, though. Her terror ran deep, so deep that she couldn't move. She just stared up at this sinister denizen of hell and asked who he was, what he wanted. He spoke slowly, measured, like he was talking to a child. He told Lana that he went by many names, some old and ancient, some familiar, but he was bigger than a moniker. He was the shepherd between worlds, the duality of existence, one of two truths that every single creature on this earth would one day experience. Yes, he said, he was death. As for what he wanted, well, he was there for Lana, because it was time for her to die. Dread curdled Lana's stomach. Her ears rang, 'cause a magic man claiming to be death stood in front of her saying, time was up. As horrifying as this was, it wasn't exactly surprising. That's what happens when you have a near-death experience. You're suddenly aware that mortality exists, and you owe the universe one for keeping you alive. All that's to say, even though this whole thing was impossible to believe, something inside Lana knew it was true. Death was here, and he wanted to kill her. But that didn't mean she was just going to let it happen. As the man called Death stepped forward and reached out a hand, Lana slapped it away and lunged again for the door. She grabbed the handle and yanked it open, then stumbled into the dark blue-hued hallway and ran. She realized something was wrong pretty fast. After a few strides, the end of the hallway was as far away as it had always been. She tried again, ran as hard as she could. She felt her feet hit the floor, her arms pump by her sides, but she wasn't moving. She glanced behind her at room 3. Death hadn't come out yet. She eyed the corridor again. Now, in the Lana of 6 months ago, she would have just given up here. But this Lana, she dug down, deep, told herself to move, move. She ran and ran and ran, closed her eyes while she did it, didn't stop pushing until she could hear the pulse of the club rise up around her. She opened her eyes. She'd done it. She was back in the main room, full of patrons. Her co-worker Kelsey was on the stage in the middle of her set. The thrum of bass swirled around Lana. She'd never expected the deafening music to be such a sweet, sweet sound. When she glanced over her shoulder at the hall, it was still that dark, hazy blue. Empty. No sign of death. So she hurried towards the exit. She swung open the heavy club door and hurried outside. Only, she wasn't outside. She'd gone through the front door and somehow walked right back into the main room. The same pulsing music. Lights, dancing, patrons. Yeah, you get it. She stared at the door, wondering if she hadn't actually walked through. So she tried again, swung it open, stepped across the threshold, and walked back into the club's main room. She didn't give up until she tried again and again and again. On her fifth go-round, she stopped, letting the fear build up inside her, and she finally realized what was happening. She was trapped. Elevating my style used to mean breaking the bank. But with Quince, I get high-end, versatile pieces at prices I can actually afford. Thanks to Quince, I'm set with quality pieces I love. And their bamboo sheet set, let's just say, I've been having the best sleep ever. Quince has all the must-haves like Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50, iconic 100% leather jackets, and comfortable pants for every occasion. The best part? All Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices, along with premium fabrics and finishes. I love that. Oh, and the Mediterranean fig candle that I just got from Quince? My whole apartment smells amazing. Indulge in affordable luxury. Go to quince.com/run for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/run to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/run.
There are very few things that you can be certain of in life. But you can always be sure the sun will rise each morning. You can bet your bottom dollar that you'll always need air to breathe and water to drink. And, of course, you can rest assured that with Public Mobile's 5G subscription phone plans, you'll pay the same thing every month. With all of the mysteries that life has to offer, a few certainties can really go a long way. Subscribe today for the peace of mind you've been searching for. Public Mobile. Different is calling.
Despite Lana's ever-growing panic, she decided to try the door one more time. But before she could, there was a change in the atmosphere. The music stopped. Lana looked around the room. All of the patrons were very still, watching the stage. Lana stood behind them, waiting with bated breath, because she knew something truly appalling was about to happen. Then, it did. One by one, those heads turned around. A 360-degree nightmare. The neck swiveled and the skin bunched up. Cracking spines filled the air, echoing through the club, till all of them, were staring at Lana. Their mouths hinged open, and they spoke in unison, in a single syrupy tone. Death's voice. They said they wanted to tell Lana a story about a girl who had a lot of promise, but made a mess of her life. And when it came time for her to die, Death gave her a gift. He granted her 6 more months, 182 days, to clean things up and assemble a life she could be proud of, instead of one that made her ashamed. That was all she got. 6 months. And now, the faces were quiet for a moment. When they spoke, their words were full of finality, as they said, now, that time was up. Lana screamed and ran for the door once again, a futile attempt that did not pan out. Seconds later, she was right back where she started. The faces still watched her, whispering that same story she just heard, over and over. The story about the girl, about Lana. Lana looked around for any idea about how to get out of there. She realized she'd been trying the front door this whole time. There were other doors, like the one behind the stage. So she ran. Through the zoned-out patrons, she could hear their spines crack when their necks twisted, as they craned back around to watch her fly across the stage to the back exit. She shoved the curtain aside, opened the door, and ran through, only to find herself on the stage again, next to the pole, staring out at the audiences very still, watchful faces. Lana gasped for breath from exertion and fear. She racked her mind trying to think. As she stood there, the patrons changed, or more specifically, they rotted. Flesh turned black and festered. Skin dripped down their cheekbones. Lips hung in useless disintegrating flaps. Decrepit bugs crawled out of eyeballs and nostrils. Lana screamed and sank to the ground. She threw her arms over her head, wailing and sobbing. Her lungs turned to fire as she ran them ragged with her screams. She pressed her knees against her chest, feeling a whole mess of stuff. Rage, that she was stuck in this place she hated. Devastation, that she wouldn't see Millie again. And with all that, a tragic, bitter acceptance. This was actually happening. Death had wrapped his icy grip around her soul, and he wasn't going to let go. Lana was so busy reeling she didn't see the hand right away. It reached out, palm raised up, an offering gesture. Death stood over her, an empathetic smile on his face. Lana stared at his palm. She knew if she took that hand, that would be the end of it, the last thing she would ever do. Her eyes were full of tears. She didn't want to go. She whispered a plea, begging him to let her stay. He shook his head. He couldn't do that. But if she wanted it, she could have 5 more minutes. That was it. What she did with that time was up to her. Lana looked into his eyes, ancient dark pools on his face, and nodded. As soon as she did, Death disappeared. The club returned to normal with its loud thud of music and flashing lights. The patrons in the audience were still staring at Lana, but now they weren't disintegrating or controlled by death or anything. Not anymore. They were just confused about why Lana was on stage and not dancing. Lana looked out at them, trembling from head to toe. 5 more minutes. There wasn't much she could do in 5 minutes. She couldn't make a big last meal or anything like that. She couldn't get to Millie in time to say goodbye. But she could dance. She could dance like she used to, when movement and artistic expression had filled her with endless passion and joy. It was the part of her life that had been ripped away from her. It was the one thing she hadn't been able to face in those 6 months. And now, at the end of it all, it was the one thing she wanted to do more than anything. She slowly stood, closed her eyes, listened to the music pulse around her. She felt her entire body go still, no longer quivering with terror and nerves. It was filled with energy, a desire to connect to the beat, and to move. It's how she used to feel before her injury, when she used to go up on stage at Juilliard. Then, she danced. Not some showy exotic number, not even a ballet. It was just art in its purest form. Every one of Lana's movements was the embodiment of feeling. Her limbs and tears told a story, the one Death had uttered just moments ago, of a girl who was filled with so much shame she didn't even see a person anymore when she looked in the mirror. But that girl learned to live with joy, to regain her humanity, just in time to die. Bliss rose up in her, so did grief, anger, a sense of loss. All of the things a person could feel, Lana did. And she relished in those feelings. She raised her arms and spun, letting the lights blend together above her, merging in a neon rainbow. Then, she was suddenly standing in the audience, outside her body, watching herself on stage. Her arms were still raised, an expression of complete and utter peace on her face, before she crumbled to the stage, legs and arms splayed out at unnatural angles. She did not move again. Screams filled the air from the patrons as they realized Lana was not getting back up, that there was now a corpse on stage at the last light. The club turned chaotic. People ran around. Her boss hurried on stage to check her pulse. The other dancers watched on in horror too. Lana observed it all, unseen, from the back of the room. She was totally absorbed in the chaos, until she felt a cold hand in hers. It was comforting and gave her a squeeze. She looked beside her into Death's smiling face as he winked and said, "That was one hell of a dance." She returned his smile, and together they walked to the exit. The door was open. A bright light shot through the frame, welcoming Lana to whatever came next. She did not look behind her as she stepped inside, into her next phase of life, death. The man outside the last light finished, looked me up and down, assessing my reaction to his tale. I felt horribly sad, because I knew how Lana felt. We all live a lot of lives. Sometimes, those periods are spent being people we don't want to be. It was a damn shame Lana didn't get to live longer, in a life she enjoyed. But I was glad, too. Not all of us get a chance at redemption. Lana did, by doing the thing she loved most in the world. It wasn't justice or happiness, but it felt cathartic all the same. It made me look at my own mess with a different perspective. If work was getting me down, well, I shouldn't waste any more time. I had to change it. As I was mulling over this, I noticed the man staring at me with that same knowing smile. I shivered. It occurred to me that there was only one way this man knew about Lana and her journey. The thought made my heart pound, so I quickly said goodbye, thanked him for the story, then took off down the street. As I went, I held my breath, hoping that I didn't feel his tap on my shoulder or his hand in mine. I didn't, but I felt a chill creep up my back nonetheless. Not from the winter around me, but from the man I now knew was death. He was watching. That was the end of the story, but I'm not done with you yet. Wondering what happened next? That stays between the Run Fool community and me. If you're not too scared to join us, head over to joinrunfool.com today. That's JoinRunFool.com. You can sign up for longer, scarier episodes, ad-free listening, and exclusive Ask Me Anything sessions. Sign up now at joinrunfool.com. Don't walk. Run, fool! Run Fool is a production of Ballin Studios, Campside Media, and At Will Media. It is hosted and executive produced by me, Rodney Barnes. This episode was written by Kate Murdoch and produced and edited by Abakar Adan. Engineering support by Greg Devins II. Sound director, designer, and mixer is Kevin Seaman. Coordinating producer is Avery Siegel, and artwork by Jessica Clarkston Kiner. Production support by Jeremy Bone and Cole Lacasio. Special thanks to our operations team, Doug Slaywin, Ashley Warren, Sabina Mara, and Destiny Dingle. Executive producers at Ballin Studios are MrBallen, Nick Witters, and Zach Levitt. Executive producer at Will Media is Will Malnati. Executive producers at Campside Media are Matt Scher, Josh Dean, Vanessa Gregoriadis, and Adam Hoff. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.